All right, Dan. So our last video, we asked what is our favorite or go-to gospel. Again, talking about how they're all equal, all have good stuff. We always want to clarify
like
that.
the Gospels in the Bible.
The Gospels in the Bible. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Yes. I don't know what other gospel we would
Paul said if even an angel preaches a different gospel.
Oh,
you see what I'm saying?
See. Yes.
So
yes.
we don't get to choose just what gospel we enjoy
what good
in that way. Yeah.
Do I like the good news of Apple or the good news? No. So this week, we'll try to get back on track here.
Mm-hmm.
This week, what is your favorite prophet? What's your favorite Old Testament prophet to read?
Well, it's a jump ball between Ezekiel and Daniel. But Ezekiel, I believe, is my favorite prophet.
Okay.
Because he, in picture form, in a very dramatic setting, illustrates the relationship of God with Israel.
Yeah.
He describes the presence of God, the wheels within wheels, the throne, the glorious presence of God.
Yeah.
That appears to the captives that are far away, in near Babylon in the captivity.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the destruction of Jerusalem is going on, and he pictures the presence of God at the temple, and then he looks in the temple and he sees all these horrible sins that are being committed. And in Ezekiel 8-10, he pictures the presence of God lifting up off of the holy place and going to the outer part of the temple, and then going to the wall of the city, and then leaving Jerusalem altogether. And if you read books like First and Second Kings, you read the gradual descent of Israel Judah into sin, and how it says in Second Kings 17 that God removed them from His presence.
Right.
And you see that graphically depicted in Ezekiel, so that God's leaving. God's leaving us. And then in the latter part of Ezekiel, you see these visions of a new, cleansed Jerusalem, and how that the very last verse of Ezekiel says the name of that city will be called "The Lord is there." And so Yahweh comes back to the new Jerusalem, but it's like a relationship history of God's people with God, and it's graphically depicted, like with good graphics. Like Hunter Love, he does good graphics, see? And Ezekiel.
If you don't know, Hunter is the one who does the graphics for lots of stuff around our church, including this podcast video.
So he does good graphics, but Ezekiel's prophecy is full of really good graphics. And it shows that God is there. God wants to live with His people. He's grieved over their sin. He leaves His people. And even when He leaves, God dreams of a time when Jerusalem will be cleansed and new, and He'll be back to live there, which you find in the book of Revelation.
Right,
So, I love the book of Ezekiel for all those reasons, because all those things speak to this relationship. Dustin preached 3 or 4 weeks ago on the dry bones, Well, even that speaks of a dead relationship and how God can breathe new life into that relationship. It goes right along with the thematic material in Ezekiel.
What I'm hearing just in some of these discussions is you and I think very similarly on some things, which is scary. Which is scary.
I can't imagine that.
Because there's definitely a lot of elements of that book for those reasons I like. And when you said it's a toss-up between Daniel and Ezekiel, I was going, mine is a toss-up between Jonah and Daniel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of a lot of very similar reasons. And I think I lean slightly more towards Daniel just because there's more to it. Like, I love Jonah, especially the ending that no one ever reads.
Jonah is pretty simple and straightforward.
It is, but it's the one that I can go, man, I feel like that today, the most often.
Yeah.
But Daniel, because it has the story element at the beginning, and it has a lot of that relationship back and forth, trust in God, even when it looks different, reaps these rewards. But then he has
The apocalyptic
all
in the
the
end.
prophecy stuff in the end, that
Yeah.
you get to see those pictures and see how it plays out. And anyway, so I think maybe I'll go with Daniel, just because there's a little bit more meat.
I love the book
and
of
a bit
Daniel.
more to discuss there.
It's a great book.
It's one that I've spent a lot of time in to teach, and to, you have to reorder it if you're going to teach it to kids in order, because that's usually their first question. They're like, how did this happen there? And so then when you reorder it and put it in place, it's fun to kind of see that full picture. And again, there's a lot of things that I like, the storytelling element of it.
Well, and when we're talking about this, and you ask about favorites, I'm a big picture person. I don't look at like a passage of a book.
Yeah.
I look at
how the whole thing.
What is unfolding in this whole work right here, and what are the fundamental themes and messages in it, and those things are what makes me love a book. Those big messages of a book that are profound about our relationship with God.
And see, that's where something that, as time goes on, there's a lot of minor prophets that are like the 1-page, the 2-pagers, that sometimes in that short amount, I find that bigger picture, that singular message, it's able to come out.
It's easier to grasp there, yes.
And
like in the book of Amos.
Yeah. There's a lot of those things that you read them and you go, oh, that was the point. Whereas, when I was younger, reading even as much depth as like Isaiah has, well, Isaiah was really hard to read through because you were going, what's going on?
It's a lot bigger.
And even Ezekiel, you're reading that going, this is nuts. What's going on in this thing? But then, like you say, you zoom out, get that big picture, and you see that relationship between. So, yeah, it's always fun to break down and look at those different things.
And what about you guys out there?
Yeah.
What are your favorites and why? Think about that as you listen.
Yeah, and maybe you haven't read the prophets as recently, so
they're rich.
Yeah, dive into them. See where they lead you. Like I say,
God will challenge you. God will hit you right between the eyes in the prophets.
Yeah, there have been a couple of times I've read the minor prophets and then go into another short book, Jude in the New Testament, and you just kind of skip over them because they're short, and you go, man, why have I not read that? We really need that right now.
Yep.
So anyway, yeah, we'd love to know that too. What's your go-to prophet? So thanks again for watching.
That Jeremiah was a crybaby. He was always crying.
Somebody out there really likes Jeremiah, though.
Yeah, but he was always weeping and crying. Yeah.
Y'all have a good week.
Bye.
See ya. Ba-dum.